50 items, not merchandise, not autographs, phones, wallets, car keys, engagement rings, and a Vietnam veteran's dog tags belonging to his late father. According to a teammate who broke her silence on a recent podcast, Caitlin Clark has been doing something after every single Indiana Fever game this season that almost nobody in the arena ever knew was happening. And when this story finally surfaced, the internet stopped cold. Here's what the teammate revealed. After every game, win or lose, home or road, Caitlin Clark reportedly stays long after most players have cleared the locker room. She doesn't go back to the weight room. She doesn't extend her media session or film extra content. According to this account, she walks back out into the stands and goes row by row, quietly collecting items that fans left behind. Phones, wallets, children's toys, wedding rings, items that mean everything to someone who drove home, not even realizing they were gone. You've been asking for content that cuts through the noise and actually shows you who Caitlin Clark is when the cameras aren't following her, the version that exists away from the controversies and the manufactured narratives. This teammate revelation might be the most unfiltered window into that person we've seen all season. And what it shows is going to make a lot of people rethink what they thought they knew. Before we break this down, if you're here because this channel actually does the work and goes deeper than the surface-level drama, go ahead and hit that like button right now. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells us directly to keep bringing you stories like this one. Now let's examine exactly what was said and why it's landing the way it is. The account came during a podcast interview where one of Caitlin's Indiana Fever teammates was asked what Caitlin is really like behind the scenes. The conversation started conventionally enough, general praise, observations about team chemistry, but then the teammate mentioned one specific detail that shifted everything. Early in the season, she came back to the arena after a game to retrieve something she'd forgotten. The building was mostly empty, and she found Caitlin Clark moving through the stands alone, a bag in hand, picking up forgotten items from between the seats. When the teammate asked what she was doing, Caitlin's reported answer was simple and completely direct. Fans pay good money to come watch them play. The least she could do is make sure they got their stuff back if they lost something. That response is worth sitting with for a moment. Because we're talking about one of the most commercially valuable athletes in women's sports, a player whose sponsorship portfolio includes Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, and Wilson, whose jersey sales and broadcast impact have measurably altered the financial trajectory of the WNBA. And her explanation for staying behind in an empty arena after exhausting games to collect other people's belongings was that it seemed like basic decency. Nothing more complicated than that. Now we want to be clear up front about what we know and what we're working from. This story originates from a single teammate account relayed through a podcast interview. No official league statement has confirmed the specific details, and the Indiana Fever organization has, according to reports, acknowledged and praised Caitlin's commitment to fans in general terms. The granular stories about specific item recoveries come from this one source. We are presenting those details as reported accounts, not established fact. What we can say is that after the story spread, fans began coming forward independently, posting screenshots of direct messages, sharing accounts of personal deliveries, in ways that organically reinforce the broader picture. Here is the context that makes this story carry the weight it does. Caitlin Clark's first WNBA season was defined by a collision of narratives that had very little to do with basketball. Her arrival from Iowa brought an unprecedented wave of new fans, new broadcast interest, and new commercial attention to the league. It also brought a polarization that fractured the WNBA community in ways that are still playing out. On one side, fans who came specifically for Caitlin Clark and view her as a generational talent transforming the sport. On the other, longtime WNBA supporters who feel the attention she receives is disproportionate, racially unequal, and dismissive of the players who built the foundation she stepped onto. In that environment, every story about Caitlin Clark arrives carrying political weight before a single word is read. Her early professional struggles were framed as evidence she was overhyped. Her later performance gains became evidence of favoritism. Her endorsement portfolio became a flashpoint in a larger debate about which athletes, corporations, and media choose to elevate. There has been almost no neutral ground on which to discuss her. And then someone drops a story about her returning a stuffed animal to a little girl. The teammate reportedly described specific accounts that spread rapidly across social media. Over the course of the season, Caitlin is said to have recovered and returned more than 50 items: phones, wallets, car keys, expensive jewelry, and children's belongings. She reportedly coordinated with arena staff, used social media to identify owners when she found personal information on items, and in multiple cases personally arranged returns rather than simply leaving things at the lost and found desk. The individual stories are what stopped people cold. A young girl's stuffed animal left in the stands. Caitlin reportedly posted about it online, located the family through social media, and personally delivered the toy before the next home game. A wallet containing several $100s in cash. She reportedly traced it back to its owner rather than handing it to security. The person was reportedly brought to tears when she got in touch. Multiple engagement rings and wedding bands that she went to significant lengths to return, reportedly understanding the weight those items carried beyond their material value. And then the account that cut through everything. A military veteran had lost dog tags at a Fever game. Tags belonging to his father, a Vietnam-era service member, carrying the kind of irreplaceable sentimental significance that no lost and found system is equipped to honor. According to the teammate, Caitlin found the tags during her post-game cleanup, researched military databases to try to identify the owner, eventually located the veteran through social media, and arranged a personal meeting to return them. The interaction, by every account shared, was deeply emotional. We want to emphasize again, these are reported details from a single source, presented as accounts rather than verified history, but what they collectively describe is a behavioral pattern, sustained, private, executed after every game, regardless of score or fatigue, that does not accommodate any simple, cynical explanation. The arena cleaning staff at the Fever's home venue have reportedly corroborated the general pattern through the teammates' account. No other athlete they have worked with has shown this level of consistent investment in the arena environment and the belongings fans leave behind. That is a specific, grounded category of testimony, not social media enthusiasm, not heat of the moment, that carries its own distinct weight. What is equally significant is the timeline of when this reportedly began. Not after Caitlin Clark had won the public over. Not in response to a string of negative press cycles. According to the teammate, it started early in the season, during the weeks when Caitlin was visibly struggling with the adjustment to professional basketball, absorbing criticism for her performance, navigating a very public rookie learning curve with no guarantee of how it would resolve. She was doing this during that window, staying behind in empty arenas to help strangers recover their belongings, while her own professional standing was still uncertain. That timing removes the most convenient cynical interpretation. If the behavior had emerged after a reputation crisis, you could question the motivation. But the timeline as described places the origin at a moment when Caitlin had every professional incentive to focus entirely on her own survival in the league, and was apparently choosing something else entirely with her post-game hours. The Indiana Fever's locker room culture has been an ongoing storyline throughout the season. Head coach Christy Sides has spoken repeatedly about team cohesion and the way veteran players have shaped the environment for younger members of the roster. What this teammate revelation adds to that culture story is something more concrete than general chemistry, a specific behavior, apparently organic and uncurated, that has influenced how players relate to each other and to the organization. According to the account, after discovering Caitlin's routine, the teammates started joining her. Then other players started joining too. A solo act became an informal team tradition, culture spreading not through mandates or programs, but through one person doing something worthwhile and others deciding to show up alongside her. Here's the question that's been dominating comment sections and fan communities since this story spread. Has anyone in our community had an item personally returned by Caitlin Clark? Drop it below right now, because if these accounts are accurate, there are people watching this who have first-hand stories, and that kind of direct, specific corroboration is exactly what separates real reporting from noise. Let's talk about what the public response to this story reveals about where we actually are in the Caitlin Clark cultural moment. The story traveled through a specific chain. The Teammates podcast interview circulated on fan accounts, moved into mainstream sports commentary, and then something unusual happened. Fans who had apparently had items returned by Caitlin began coming forward independently, posting screenshots of direct messages, sharing photos of personal deliveries, adding first-person accounts to a story that started from a single source. The corroboration was organic, unprompted, and cumulative. It did not look like a managed PR rollout, because it wasn't one. When reporters reached out to Caitlin for her reaction, her response reportedly deflated the entire PR opportunity. She said it wasn't a big deal, that anyone would do the same thing, that she didn't want credit for just being a decent person. She reportedly expressed genuine discomfort with the attention the story was generating, not performed humility, but a visible effort to redirect attention away from herself. That response pattern deserves serious analysis on its own terms. Elite athletes operating at Caitlin's commercial level do not typically deflect positive press. The infrastructure around players of her stature, agent teams, brand consultants, league communications departments, is specifically designed to capture moments like this one and amplify them strategically. An act of community service becomes content. A character revelation becomes a campaign. The machinery exists, and it knows how to use this kind of story. Her actively pushing back against that amplification, turning down the opportunity to leverage something that was already in the public sphere, is itself a data point worth noting. The critics who have spent the past year constructing a narrative around Caitlin Clark as an overrated player, benefiting from racially biased media and corporate attention, now face a genuinely uncomfortable structural challenge. The mechanics of that critique require Caitlin to be, in some essential way, passive and performed, carried by external forces, shaped by institutional decisions made above her. A player who has been quietly doing this for an entire season, for no audience, with no upside, turning down the chance to leverage it even after discovery, does not slot neatly into that framework. This does not resolve the legitimate, structural questions about how media attention and commercial investment are distributed across the WNBA. Those are real issues that exist independently of any individual player's character and deserve serious analysis. But the specific version of the critique that positions Caitlin Clark as a manufactured persona rather than an authentic person has considerably less purchase when set against the picture this story describes. Before we continue, if this channel has been where you come for WNBA coverage that actually does the work and doesn't take sides for the sake of engagement, consider becoming a member. Every member is directly what makes this level of research and analysis possible. The Join button is right below this video. The broader institutional implications for the WNBA are worth examining carefully, because this story lands at a particularly significant moment for the league's trajectory. The WNBA has spent several years trying to build the kind of deep fan connection that sustains sports organizations through the inevitable cycles of on-court variation, injuries, team rebuilds, the natural ebb and flow of competitive performance. What converts casual interest into durable fandom is not statistics. It is not even winning. At every level of professional sports, sustained audience loyalty is built on personal connection, the feeling that the people on the court are worth caring about beyond what they produce in a given game or season. The audience that has entered the WNBA's ecosystem through Caitlin Clark is exceptionally large, exceptionally young, and exceptionally digitally active. They are forming their relationship to the league right now, in real time, through exactly the kind of character stories that spread organically on social media. A story about a routine that nobody knew was happening, and that turned out to be real, verifiable through fan accounts, creates the kind of emotional stakes that highlight reels simply cannot manufacture. Youth basketball coaches around the country have reportedly begun incorporating this into their teaching. The principle at the center of it, character is what you do when nobody is watching, is not new. But concrete specificity makes abstract principles land differently. It is one thing to tell a young player to be a good person. It is another to tell them about the best player in the league staying behind in an empty arena after a 40-minute game to find a little girl's stuffed animal. If you've been following this story and want more people to have access to analysis that goes beyond the headlines, sharing this video is the most direct way to make that happen. Every share puts it in front of someone who hasn't seen it yet. Now let's look at the forward picture, because this is where the story becomes genuinely significant beyond the current news cycle. Caitlin Clark's second WNBA season arrives against a backdrop that has shifted dramatically from her rookie year. New broadcast deals have changed the financial architecture of the league. Stadium expansion conversations are live for the Indiana Fever. The collective bargaining agreement negotiation is approaching with unprecedented urgency, driven substantially by the revenue explosion Caitlin's presence has catalyzed. Players across the league are pushing for compensation structures that reflect a new commercial reality, and Caitlin Clark sits at the center of that conversation in a genuinely complicated way. As both the primary engine of that new revenue and as a player whose own contract situation will inevitably be a reference point in negotiations that affect everyone. Here is what nobody is fully connecting yet. Read the post-game cleanup story against that financial and political backdrop, and it stops being just a character study. It becomes a preview of how Caitlin Clark is likely to navigate the complexity of being the most commercially significant player in the history of women's basketball. The pressure on her is genuinely multi-directional, and it will only intensify. Her marketability depends on maintaining authentic personal branding in an environment that constantly converts authenticity into performance. Her relationship with teammates and the broader player community depends on the gap between her commercial situation and theirs not becoming so vast that it creates irreparable fractures. Her relationship with the fan base that came specifically for her depends on not disappearing behind the apparatus of celebrity as her profile grows. What the post-game routine reveals, and this is the key thing, is that her default response to pressure is to move toward people rather than away from them, not through calculated positioning, through habit. She stayed behind to pick up lost belongings. She tracked down a veteran to return his father's dog tags. She drove to deliver a stuffed animal. None of those actions had a commercial upside. All of them reveal an instinctive orientation toward other people that operates independently of audience and incentive. She is 22 years old. She is in the opening chapters of a career that most serious analysts believe will define a generation of women's basketball. The habits she builds right now, the values that operate when nobody is watching, the reflexes that govern her behavior in empty arenas long after the crowd has gone home, will compound over the next decade and determine not just what kind of player she becomes, but what kind of institution she becomes. Athletes who transcend sports and become something larger almost always do it through character that persists independent of performance, through patterns of behavior that fans discover over time and find impossible to dismiss. Based on what a teammate decided to share on a podcast, that foundation appears to be exactly what you'd want it to be. If you are not subscribed yet, right now is the right moment, because this channel is going to keep tracking Caitlin Clark's full story with the depth and honesty it deserves, and the next chapter is coming fast. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what we are covering next. Coming up, we are going inside the financial architecture of the WNBA's new broadcast era, specifically what the expanded deals actually mean for player compensation in the next CBA, and whether the players who built this league are finally positioned to capture the returns they've been fighting for. Caitlin Clark is central to that story in ways that most coverage has not yet fully mapped. Stay with us.